What's up, y'all? We're doing a cylinder soak on this is a 2013 Scion XP I just got. Prior owner's friend of mine, he said it was using about a quart about every 500 miles, and it was about half quart when we got it low, and I put 300 miles on it. It's just barely showing on the stick, so it's using a lot of oil. So the way this is done is pretty simple. I should have started this earlier, but I didn't. Well, let's just keep knocking things over. There's just these two bolts right here, and that'll free this up. There's little buttons here on these. You take these off, and this is important. You don't want these coils anywhere near this when you're doing this, because if there's air and spark, it could cause a fire. We don't want that. Don't burn your car down to the ground and then send me a nasty message that you burned your car to the ground doing this. So anyway, you just pull these off. They can be stiff, and sometimes these will break. There's a channel, and I'll see if I can post the link to it. If they do break somehow or another, none of these broke, you can fix these reliably with a zip tie, which was and it's not by wrapping around. It actually utilizes this little hole here, some little pathway, but it works. So anyway, you'll pull your plugs. All you need is the spark plug socket, and the blue tape's stuck in there because the Harbor Freight or whoever made these didn't put a gasket in it thick enough to hold the plug. So if that ever happens, you can take so I've got this, it's got a magnet on the end. You can fish them out that way too. I couldn't get the last one out, so I had to resort to that. Anyway, once you get the plugs out, it's pretty simple. You're just gonna go down and get you some bottles of this right here, Berryman's B12, and you'll pour a little bit of that in the crank case, and the results are really good. On the 2009 Scion XP, I was using about a quart, about every 300 miles. I did 3 treatments each of this, and at 3,000 mile intervals. We're going to try it a little bit different this time and see if we have better and same results, or I'm just wasting my time. So instead of treating it once and putting the plugs back in and going from that aspect, we're going to try filling up these cylinders. Oh, by the way, another thing, if you reach around the back over here, you can grab that pulley, and you can grab this, and with the plugs out, you can turn the engine over. What you're wanting to do here to make sure you get as much of this stuff on there and stays on there as long as possible. See, I've got this big long screwdriver. Do not turn the engine over with this in there if you're going to use the engine to do it. But you see where I've got it, that's the 2 out ones are the same, and the 2 middle ones are the same. I've got it about halfway. So you don't have to get crazy technical with it. That way you can fill them all up and they'll all drain at about the same level. You don't want to have 2 cylinders all the way up, and obviously that's not going to help you because you won't be able to get any solvent onto it. So I'm going to fill this up with this Berryman's here, and just so you know, I'm not pulling your leg on this. I just pull them up. Oh, and if you're, and this one does not like this, but if you pull your plugs out and there's oil on them, this valve cover gasket, which is really easy to replace, is your culprit. There are rings that go around each one of those plug holes, and those plug holes, once that gasket hardens up, it turns almost into like just plastic. I think it's rubber, some kind of rubber, I say, but the pieces will break and it'll start leaking, and you'll pull your plugs out and you'll have oil in there. So don't freak out if you see that. Just go buy you a gasket. So I don't know exactly how much I'm putting in here. Another thing, when you're finishing this up, you can use your screwdriver as well as a dipstick to see how much solvent's left in there. You don't really want to crank this over until it's all out. Some people try to evacuate the cylinders. In my case, I haven't had any trouble whatsoever with simply just letting it sit for about 12 hours, and it'll seep past the rings. Now, it'll be in the crankcase in here, so we're going to talk about that here in a little bit too, and see where we're at. But I'm going to quit boring y'all with all this, and we'll be back. Well, now that I was thinking about this, I could have I have a bore scope. I've only filled up 3 of these cylinders, and the bore scope is pretty nice if you want to if you don't want to do the screwdriver method, if you want to look in there and see. But what I failed to do was to look to see how dirty these cylinders actually were. Fortunately, I ran out of solvent, and it occurred to me I still haven't done this one over here. So I'm charging that up, and we're going to take a look at that cylinder right there and see what it looks like before and after each treatment. And then we're going to do the same thing. Obviously the first ones are going to look cleaner because they already had the treatment on it, but we're going to do 3 of these on here and see where it goes. So hang tight, and I'll get that out there for you.
Okay, well, ignore the date on that picture. That's wrong. I'm just too lazy to set the date on it. But this is the number 4 cylinder. I didn't pour anything into it. That appears to be oil and gasoline mix sitting over there in the corner. All the cylinders kind of look like this pretty much through, and I'll show you guys some more images later on in the video of what it looked like and all the debris and how it was loose. So really what we're looking at here, y'all, is a big, tremendous mess here. This car has right at 200,000 miles on it, but it does look like it has a hell of a lot more than that. But that's where it is, right at 200,000. So the next video here that's about to queue up, this is from the side of the cylinder number 4, and that's towards the bottom. You can see on the right there, that's the cylinder itself. You see that carbon buildup, and that's really bad. And then you see the cross hatching. Now that looks like a very low mile engine to me, with all that cross hatching. It really looks pretty good. So I'm not too worried about this. I think everything's going to be fine once we get in there and get this thing cleaned out, and hopefully it goes as well as it has with the other ones. All right, next thing to talk about, and I'm not your dad. I'm not going to sit here and preach to you, but safety is a big deal on this. This solvent is very flammable. If you have any that's remaining in there, you could have a fire. It's not likely as long as you remove the coils. A lot of people say you can pull the fuel pump fuse, which I'm not able to find. I pulled the EFI main fuse, and you'll see later in the video that did not work. At the very least, you need to make sure that there are no coils on this engine, so when you're spinning that over, if there's any remaining solvent, it doesn't catch fire. The solvent, even the fumes, especially the fumes, are very flammable. So I want to make sure you guys are safe. You don't burn your car to the ground. If you burn your car to the ground after watching this video, that is on you. That is not my fault. Make sure you are safe.
We're going to let this thing sit here. I'll probably stuff some rags down in there. We're going to let this thing sit here for about 12 to 15 hours. Got to come out tomorrow, and we're going to pop another can in, whatever's left, a little bit that's in this one here. We're going to put those in there. So we're really effectively doing 2 treatments. And I guess this being Tuesday, Thursday afternoon, we'll go back in there and look at the camera footage and see how it looks compared to what it did. I'm sure by now you've already seen the video that showed you how incredibly oily and disgusting the tops of those pistons were. You also saw how good the cross hatching is. This is this car is a 2013. It is what they call a 10 series, only 2013, special wheels, and it has the lighted badges on the back, which is kind of cool. See, that lights up. One on the front does as well. And it's got a special shift knob, but unfortunately the lighting part of that does not work, but it is supposed to work. So I may get in there and try to take it apart, and it's got that ultra cool Scion thing on the dashboard that comes on, and I guess we missed it. Let's try it again. Yeah, check that out. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Carbon fiber stuff around there too. I'm sure that's all stick on, it's all dealer installed. And this, which I think is pretty cool. There's a couple other little things about it, but I mean, other than that, there's no performance enhancements or anything. It's got this goofy stuff on here I've got to take off, but it's a standard XB with some little goodies on it, and you see how horrible that looks. Do not let anyone ever put this garbage on your car. You're better off with the rock chips than that. And you've already got one of those on your car. And see, we got it right here too. And that's going to be fun to get off of there. But we're going to do it. Anyway, we'll check back with you guys in the morning. So normally, at this point, this has been sitting at least 12 hours, maybe 16. All the fluid would be evacuated from the system. This, y'all, was clear liquid when it went in. So you can see how much filth that is. I mean, it's like tea. So I had to do this a little different, because one thing you don't want to do is to try to, even if there's no plugs or anything, it's just gonna make a huge mess. So I just got this little dude the other day to do the two brakes with. And it's fantastic. It's a little cool out here, so this hose is extremely stiff. And I'll give you a couple of pointers. If you take a little lighter deal like that and you heat up just the end of it, because the tube is really, really tight. When it's cold, it won't go on there. Slip that on there, and then of course, you know, this goes right there. And the purpose of this funnel is to get that tube, which is, as you can see, is curling up all the way down in there, and that worked like a charm. So I'm going to evacuate the other cylinders, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. Here's a little hack for you. If you still have some leftover fluid solvent in the bottom of it, I made this to evacuate that. So what you need is a piece of PEX pipe, 1/2 inch, and I've kind of put this on the grinder and whittled it down so it would fit tighter in there. And what you want to do is get the cylinder about that far from the top, and you see this is very curly, and it doesn't really change form. So once you put this and then put this inside of it, and then once you get it down in the cylinder, then you got this, and you can go all around there and suck up all that solvent. Also, I know whoever said just to pull the EFI main fuse is wrong. It's still pumping gasoline. I couldn't find anything under the hood to tell me where to do that, so I just decided I was done here. So I evacuated the last of the gasoline with this little gizmo here, and I can save you a lot of trouble. Also get as much of that loose carbon as you can possibly get in there. I wish I had a brush. I think if I had a little brush that had a bend in it, I could probably get a lot of that out, but I got to get the car back together. But that's a pretty cool little hack. Okay, if you're ready to start here, what you might want to get is an old t-shirt or something like that. Really important, and I can't stress this enough. Even though I've evacuated all the solvent for the most part out there, there is still some remaining. This stuff is highly flammable, so you know, get all this crap out of the way. You don't want anything like that up there. The coils are removed. There's no chance of a spark, because that can't ignite. This will catch the mess. This minimizes your risk. If you leave that off of there, I'll leave the coils on there, and you have a fire and you burn your car to the ground, that's on you. Now, this one didn't blow out as much as my other ones have in the past, but you can see some of this debris in here. But look at all this crap here. I'm gonna vacuum all that out. I'm gonna take a look down in these cylinders and see what they look like now.
So this is after the soak here. You can see it's broken most of that stuff up in there. Most of that'll come out when you do the first start on the engine. Some of this is out of order, and I apologize. The little hack I showed you, I went in there to get as much of this debris out of there. You can see there's a lot of fuel in there, and I did not start it like that. But that'll help you get that fuel out of there and set you right.
So I've done this about 5 or 6 times. I'm just kind of letting it sit, and that is, you can't obviously feel it, but it's real gritty. So that's that carbon that's come off of there. If for any other reason you don't want that grit in your engine, that is terrible for your cylinders. But that is exactly what that is. So I'm doing this one a little differently than I normally do. Normally I I get the stuff out of there, I stick the plugs back in it. But I have no idea what the engine in my car looked like. This is the first time I've ever done this and actually viewed the cylinders, and seeing how dirty they still are. I'm feeling like most of that's broken off, and it'll burn off as soon as I start the car. In fact, once I'm going to run it around a little bit, and then I'm going to look at it again. We'll see what the cylinders look like as compared to originally. But man, that is super, super gritty. Here's another one I just did. Look how much of that stuff is still in there. So I'm trying to get as much of this out as possible, and let it sit for a few minutes, crank it over, get some more of this stuff out. When this stops looking like this is when I'll put the plugs back in, but I'm not putting the plugs back in until this stops looking like this. I did a lot of making sure everything was as dry as possible. The car started right up. Afterwards, no problems whatsoever. Didn't add any oil to the cylinders, anything. Fired right up, it's running good. Normally too, I'd see a whole lot of smoke. You can see some kind of floating around there where I first started, but hell, it looks good. I'm gonna let it run for about 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna pull one of the plugs out, and we're gonna look at the cylinder and see what they look like. So, by the way, also, the solvent is still in this engine. So whatever seat past the rings, I'm not gonna drive it like this. There's a crazy YouTuber I saw that did that. He's insane. Never, ever, ever do that. The oil is super thin right now. Just let it sit here and idle. It'll kind of clean up the internals of the engine. Then I'll change oil. Everything ought to be good. So this is what we got for codes. It did throw some codes, which I'm not surprised. 352, 351, 353, 354. All those are cylinder misfire, and that stands to reason. We're going to get rid of that, and we're good. I'm not a sponsor of this by any stretch. This is a Hyper Tough Walmart deal. These are like 15 bucks, and they are awesome to have in the well, that came back interesting. You had that in the you have these in each one of your cars for $15. You can't afford to be without them if you drive junk like I do. One thing I want to note is to make sure you absolutely change the oil after doing this. I want you to see how thin that is. Don't get cocky and drive it like this. It needs to be changed anyway. As you know, there's a ton of filth in that motor, and this will actually clean that up a lot. And these cars hold 4.5 quarts. I've been putting 5 quarts in them as long as I can remember once it started using oil, and makes it easy when you do changes, and it gave you a little bit extra security that you're you know, if you didn't check your oil that day. But make sure you change that. See how thin that is. And if this was smell-o-vision, you could smell the amount of solvent in it. And it's almost 3 cans of Berryman's in there. So make sure you change the oil. One more thing, and I don't have any sponsorships whatsoever. This wrench is awesome. I have not had it not take off any oil filter. I've had the black ones that you get at Harbor Freight, and that piece right there breaks completely off in the middle. You're not going to have that with this. I got this because you see it has those notches in it. It's for my Lexus, and incidentally, it fits these too. So it's a dual oil filter, so it fits most Toyotas. So that's pretty cool if you have a fleet like I do. But that's what it is right there, and I highly recommend that. One thing that I found was interesting was the condition of these plugs. And the buildup on them. I'm assuming these are probably original. He said he couldn't remember when he changed them. There's obviously a lot of powdery buildup on that, which, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world. But I'm pretty sure these are 200,000 mile plugs that are in here. But if this would focus. So I really do believe that for something that's burning this much oil, that's pretty impressive. None of them were oily. And surprisingly enough, the valve cover gasket, I was fully expecting it to be like mine was, where it was flooding oil into the spark plug holes, but didn't see that either. So maybe he's had that replaced at some point in the past.
So this is just a quick shot of one of the cylinders, and you can see the Berrymans did a really good job of cleaning the tops of the cylinders off. There's still a little carbon remaining. I mean, it's not an exact science. It's just something that will prolong the life of the engine. I'm going to monitor it and see how it does, and then if it requires another treatment, I may do that the next time that I change the oil. But I'm pretty happy with that overall, I think.
So 3 cans of Berryman's, really cleaned it up, as you can see by the pictures of the cylinders. Dry, clean, looks really, really good. I'm going to update you guys in another video to let you know how the car's doing. I think it's going to be great. This car, despite the oil usage, runs better than the other ones that I have by a large degree. It idles perfectly. Hell, when I started it back up, you know, normally you have to do the dance of waiting for it to relearn the idle. Didn't have any of that with this car. It picked it right back up. Everything was good. The codes that were on there, I went back and looked, and they're just pending codes. So the car still think there's something going on. That should clear and go away. But anyway, thanks guys for watching this, and I will check in with you on the next video.
So overall, I'm pretty happy with the results with this so far. I've done it on 3 cars. I did it on my '09, and I've reduced the oil consumption from 300 to about 5,500, 5,600 miles or so a quart, which I can live with that. It's got 250,000 miles on it. My wife's car, we put an engine in it in 2019, and not knowing about this, and I probably could have gotten several more miles out of that car. Currently, it's at 307,000 miles, and it uses no perceivable oil after one good treatment. I did it a little bit differently on this car that we got here on this 2013, so we'll just have to see how it does overall. I'm expecting similar results, and we're just going to have to see, and I'll update you guys on the next one of these. And look, if you like what you're seeing on here, I do a lot of stuff with these cars and other auto-related things. But I'm also a musician, and so we have some kind of cool stuff on there. Like I've got a ZZ Top concert where Jeff Beck played, and this is just a month or so before he died. So it's kind of a really cool thing to watch. And if you guys like this, like I said, please subscribe, like the video. If you hit the notification bell, you'll know when I put new things up. So thanks again for watching, and have an awesome one.